Hey, welcome back. In today's video, I want to cover VanJS. It's a new UI framework that is 32 times smaller than React.js. So let's discover how it is to create a simple to-do app with VanJS and Supabase. Supabase is an open source alternative for Firebase. I like it a lot, so let's use it today and explore it as well. So as I said, VanJS, it's a super lightweight UI framework. It does work without any JSX, so all the UI components are functions. I personally prefer it a lot because it reminds me on Elm. It is just under 1 kilobyte of gzipped code. So if you use it for your website, it has a really small footprint. This is like quite a big advantage if you serve your application in countries with slow internet connection, with old mobile phones, or if you travel a lot with the Deutsche Bahn. VanJS was created by Tao Xin, a senior software engineer at Google, and he created the framework in just 133 lines of code. If this is not impressive enough, let's dive into the code and create the to-do app. So I hope you also got a fresh coffee, and let's build the VanJS application with Supabase. So as I said, Supabase is a Firebase alternative. They have like quite a lot of features. I usually use the Postgres and the authentication. Also the edge functions are really nice. Let's create a new application. I have already opened the folder. Let's create a new one, mkdir, new to-do app. Let's get started. So first of all, we do npm init because we use Node.js. Then let's add VanJS application. So let's get a look at VanJS, getting started. So we use VanJS core. This is what we need. Yarn add VanJS core. So what I usually do is using Vite for the build tool. So let's add Vite, -d for development. -d for development. So we have installed Vite and VanJS. So let's get started. First of all, I open a second terminal. This first terminal I use for development and the second one for running and deployment. So what we definitely need is a script for development. So we name it dev. This is just Vite. And also we want the build, that is Vite build, I think. Let's add an index.html because this is the entry point for Vite. And this one is just using the script. And we add the app script source. Let's add app.js. Type is module. And that's basically it. App.js. And there we just need to import van from van core. And that's basically it. So now we can get started with like a really simple component. Let's create the hello component. Yeah, let's just copy it over and see if it's working. But we don't need these. We just need hello world. Let's try if it is working. Maybe we need to import div the elements from Vite tags. Let's add a p tag and wrap this into a p. And let's see if it is working. Yarn dev localhost. Let's open it up. All right. That's it. We have the hello world example. So it is running. Let's get started with the to-do app. So what we basically need is a to-do list. To-do list that is an empty application. Here we have the const DOM. This is needed to refer to it in the div. So if we need to add like event listeners or stuff, we need to refer to it and then return DOM. And we add this one as well. So now we have the to-do list that's basically an empty div. What we basically need to do now is add some to-dos. Let's assume we have like a to-do item that is basically taking the text and the ID, and if it's done. This one will return, let's return div, because it is, or let's make it a list element, because we basically want to show it as a list element. And it just contains the text for now. Here we can create state. State is basically done in Vite with the state. So van.state, state equals van.state, and we have an empty array. Or let's add, for example, ID 1, text, test, done, false. So we have our first state element, and then we say in the div we have an UL for an unordered list. I need to learn my key bindings a bit more. And then we say we want to have a state dependent list that is basically state.map. Yeah, Copilot is not bad. So now we should see our list with one item. See, it does not work. Let's see why. UL is not defined. Yeah, we need to import it, obviously. Sorry. LE UL. I think that's it. Let's see. State.map is not a function. Yes, because we need to do state.val.map, because we need to go over the values. Okay, now we can render all the to-do lists, like all the to-dos from our to-do list. Let's maybe make this a bit more beautiful. We include a div. That contains the text as a p tag. But we also want to see if it's done or not. So we add an input that has some values. Perfect. If it's checked, so it's type checkbox. If it's checked, it's done. And we also, yeah, that's for now it. So we see it does not work because we forgot to import the input. And we have now the list of elements. That's already quite nice, but we also want to add one. That's why we not only need the list of elements, but we also need to add an input. And this input is type text, input type text. Okay, that's it. And we also want to have a button that says, okay, add. So we want to have a button that is adding the element. Okay, looks good. Next is we need to give the button some capabilities that if we click add, it also adds it to the state. So let's say on click, we have a function that is called that puts it to the state. So state.val equals state.val dot Okay, now it works. We have more than one array, so we can add them, make it a bit more beautiful. For that I usually use Tailwind CSS. So the easiest way to get started with it is just copy over into our to copy it over. So what we do is just copy over the Tailwind CSS script into our HTML. So now we have also Tailwind installed and we can make it a bit more beautiful. For example, this the div element in the list, we can say it has some classes. Class. And we say it's flex raw gap 4. And let's see if it's looking already better. It's in a raw, perfect. And we also want to give the whole DOM a bit more styling. So let's add this here, class flex. No, let's make first of P4. And now we need to wrap this into a bigger div to make this dark theme full. Screen B W screen. All right, looks already a bit better. But the most important thing now is that we have it combined with the database, right? So we can see, we load data here, it works, we can see them, but if I reload, everything is gone. So I should add this to the database, right? First things first, we need to create a new project. So what we do is I select my organization, create a new project. Let's name it VanJS Todo App. I am in Germany, that's why I set it to Germany. Let me generate a password, create a new project. This takes a second. Okay, so this is the public enum key. Let's copy it over. So first we need to npm yarn add Supabase. So we need to install Supabase. And as we can see in the documentation of Supabase, docs, getting started, JavaScript client library, we already installed it. And then we need to create our client. So first things first. Initializing, we import create client, and then we create ourselves the client. For this, we have here in our application the project URL. So just copy it over, and then the API key. So now we have our Supabase client and we can get started with it. So yarn dev. First thing is we need to create a table. So create a new table, to-dos. And what we want to have in there is the ID. It's automatically incrementing. We also want to have the text. This is just pure text. And we also want to have if it's done or not. And this one is a Boolean. And let's set it to false as default. Okay, so we have created the database and it's empty at the moment. So let's create a placeholder and set raw. ID is automatically created add as well. My new to-do. And we have one to-do. So now let's get started and see if we can load it. So const load to-dos equals async. So this one is an async function. And we say const data :error equals await Supabase dot select to-dos select return data. And in our application, what we can do now is basically say, okay, the state here is per default an empty state, and on the first thing, load date, load to-dos, then data goes to this. Okay, so now we should see no data because we probably we get an empty array. What we can do is basically disable the RLS. So you should not do this, but we can do it for now because we just want to read the data. So if we now reload the application, we should see data. Yes, my new to-do. I can set it to done, but if I reload, it is again undone. What we can do now is basically say, okay, we want to have a toggle. So let's say const toggle to-do. And we basically say from to-dos, we check the documentation, we can update data from to-dos, update, done, equals ID. So now we can say, okay, on the toggle of the checkbox, we can have an onChange listener, onChange, and we just say, okay, this onChange listener toggles toggle to do with the ID and not done. Okay, if we now click the to do, we see it changes the to-do. Now the last thing that is needed is basically deleting the to-do. Oh no, adding a to-do. Const add to-do async text goes to from insert text, and that's basically it, I hope. Let's see. So we have the on click button and we say, okay, we want to insert a value. So what we do is basically add to do. How do we get the text of the input field? We need to extract this one here into an own const. To do input equals the input. We put it here, to do input, and here we say to do input value. All right, let's test if it's work. Okay, we should set the text not to white on the input field. It should have class black. Second, to do, and if we click add, we see it works, but we need to reload. So what we can do basically is at the end of the add to do, reload the to do's. So let's say load to do's, and then again, then data goes to state.val equals data. Third to do, and if we click add, we see the third to do, and we can toggle them and they still are here. Yeah, that's basically it. So as you can see, we have like a really simple application done in just half an hour. We have the database connection. Oh, where's my data? Database connection. We see all the data are in here, in the to-dos. We see they are correctly set, true, false, second data. We have the timestamp. We have the application. And yeah, now we can build it. And as we can see, the whole gzipped application is just 27 kilobytes. This is basically because of Supabase. Without Supabase, it would be probably way smaller. And now we can basically host the whole thing on tiny host. I already logged myself in. Let's delete this one. So you see it's a new one. We want to upload something. It is test to do VanJS. Publish. And now we have it. We have the application live with the data. We can add more. Test.
Nice.
Under 30 minutes, running live, all with free tools, and in such a small footprint. It is a really small application, and as you can see, it's quite a lot of fun to build the application with this framework of like functions instead of using JSX. I'm a quite big fan of VanJS, and I think I will use it in the future. Not sure if this is like the React killer, but I think it can become some kind of like really good tool if you just want to create a small application. So in conclusion, for me, I like VanJS quite a lot. I really love the approach of using functions instead of JSX. So I'm not sure if VanJS will be adapted broadly, because still we have React as the gold standard in web development. But I think it is really important to look left and right and see how other frameworks are doing it. And for me at least, VanJS has a really good approach. If you want to use Edge functions, Supabase as well, like they support it, it's super amazing. They use Dino for their Edge functions, and it's super fast. It makes a lot of fun. It's TypeScript native. And yeah, if you want to dig a bit more into backend development, I highly recommend watching my Python tips video or my Java object-oriented rant video. Also, if you didn't subscribe yet, please do, because 98% of my viewers are not subscribed, or 97%. Until next time, happy coding!